Welcome back for another episode of Errant Adventures, the solo actual play podcast where stories are told at the speed of dice. With me, Steve Morrison, your game master and solo player. Now come on, let's grab the dice and see where our story goes. Welcome back for Chapter 37 of Book 1, Meridian. Last time, Ayati wakes up in captivity at the mercy of her newest crewmate, Luden Sartan, and a group of hierarchy commandos. They keep her alive to use as cover should Sejana contact the ship before the rendezvous. Ayati demands to see Einar, who is brought to her alive and mostly unharmed. At the rendezvous point, Sejana and Mac watch the Howlin Wolf descend and start making their way over with Minister Torvarius and 4 other guards. They're halfway to the ship when Ayati's buffered message transmits to Sejana's queue. She convinces Mac to pretend like nothing's wrong until they're out of view from the upper viewports. He directs his guards to protect Torvarius while he and Sejana enter the ship through an alternate hatch. Once she's geared up in her armor, they proceed to the bridge where they get into a firefight with 2 hierarchy commandos. Mac grunts in pain as laser bolts pepper his shoulders and chest. He careens into the console next to him, propping himself up as his breath hitches. Sejana hears the sound and an icicle of concern lances through her. She doesn't spare him a glance. Distraction means death. But with a thought, she switches her kinetic rifle to auto and unleashes a barrage towards her target. This will be 3 attacks. 14 for the first, 3d6 plus 6 damage. That is 19 total damage for 6 that sneaks through the armor. Second attack, a 12. It's 3d plus 4. That is 8, which won't even penetrate their armor. Third attack, 8 exactly. It's a hit, but I'm going to have to roll really well on 3D to just get through the armor. Nope, 13 exactly for another nil result on damage. Mac ducks behind one of the consoles and also changes tactics, switching to full auto. 3 attacks incoming. 13, 16 damage, so that's 3 that gets through the armor. Attack number 2 is 11. 3d plus 3 damage, that's 14 for another 1 damage that gets through the armor. And the third attack is 14, so 3d plus 6, 17 for another 4 damage that ekes through the armor. Sejana and Mac lay down an impressive wall of kinetics, but both commandos remain standing. They're going to return fire. Against Sejana, that's a 10. 4d plus 2 on the damage. Nope, 11 is not going to cut it. Against Mac, oh, Dark Star. That's a 15 total. Subtract 2 for cover, and I think Mac has to dive for cover here, which is a combat maneuver, or he's definitely going to be dead. So he'll inflict an additional -2, which brings it down to 11 total for the hit. And he'll increase his protection by, I'm going to say 5 as he hits the deck, leaving a metal console between himself and the commando. It's still going to be 4d plus 3 damage. Oof, 20 damage, which is reduced to 7. He gets lit up and drops to 2 strength. He is barely clinging to consciousness. Sejana senses the danger, so she turns and fires off a shot at the commando to the right. 8. 6 damage. The dice are turning against me. Second attack, 10. 3d plus 2 damage. 15 for 2 damage that sneaks through. That's enough to drop that commando to the ground. Swinging her rifle back, Sejana unleashes her third attack against the remaining commando. And that's going to be a miss. Mac can take no action this turn because he dove for cover. So the remaining commando is going to fire at Sejana. 13, jeepers. Maybe I should switch which dice I'm rolling for the good guys. 4d plus 5. That is 19 points of damage, which is exactly her damage reduction. Once again, the lasers burn into her armor, but Sejana ignores it as she lines up her sights and returns fire. Determined to end this once and for all. 14. So that's going to be 3d plus 6. 20 is 7 damage, which is exactly what Sejana needed to drop the second commando. As the second commando falls, Sejana turns toward Mac. Are you all right? He groans, pulling a med patch from his kit and jamming it up under his flak jacket. Shit, he murmurs. I should have packed my armor. She hears the pain in his voice, but a quick look tells her that securing the bridge is a more immediate concern. There's already shouting coming from down in the cargo hold and footsteps charging back up towards the bridge. Sejana slams the door closed and seals it. Though, given they took the ship once, she doubts that will hold them for long. Then she races over to the bound figure. I feel like it's fair to ask the Oracle. Is it possible that Ayati took a stray round during this fight? I think she was off to the side, so there's a small chance. But we've got to roll and see anyways. So a 10 or less on the dice. 94, that's a very strong no. She pulls out her electroblade and cuts the bonds. Ayati grimaces from behind a gag, which Sejana quickly pulls free. Ayati throws her arms awkwardly around her, and Sejana pulls her up, half hugging and half helping. You got my message? Ayati asks, grimacing. Sejana nods. Good thinking. How many? I'm not sure. At least 6, but I don't think more than 10. Ina? In the hold, I think. He was supposed to be insurance when you came aboard. She looks at the door. Didn't you see him on your way in? Didn't come that way, Sejana says, turning back to the commandos' bodies. She strips their weapons as something slams against the door. I give it no more than 90 seconds before they're through that door, Max says as he struggles to his feet. Let's take a quick pause and check in on poor Mac's wounds. He's really hurt, and while he wasn't wearing his ISS armor, he was carrying a med patch. I'm going to say it is a TL-14 med kit for our purposes, which grants a +3 DM on medic checks for first aid. I think all the ISS operators have some medic training, so I'll give Mac a +2 as well for a total of +5. He gets a number of characteristic points back based on effect. Target number of 8. Here we go. 14 for an effect of 6. So we'll pump that right back into his strength, making that characteristic an 8 again. Agreed, Sejana says, slinging her kinetic rifle back and checking the laser carbine. Satisfied it isn't gene-locked, she tosses one to Mac and keeps the other one for herself. Ayati grabs one of the fléché pistols and a bandolier of darts. Sejana faces the door and adjusts a dial on her gauntlet before detaching her Technomancer mask from her thigh and sealing it over her face. Beside her, Mac says, Mare, you sure about this? Never. Hasn't stopped me yet. She says as she triggers a release of void serum through her deep skin, doubling the dose. Desperate times. The unspeakable cold of the void spikes through her spine, making her skin burn and her bones feel as though they're being pulled by too many different gravities. Raising her hand, she draws a quick series of symbols and cuts a hand across the open space before the door. Fortunately, it's been long enough since her last tangle with the void serum that she won't take any penalties for this. Now, according to the rules, she can take a single or double dose without making an endurance check. The double dose will boost her psi score by 6 points, which will give her a +4 to her teleportation test. It's still going to be a target number of 12 because she's going to try and take people with her, but I'm going to give her a boon die for this roll because she isn't trying to go far and she's teleporting within the wolf, which she knows well. So 3d6 +4 against a target number of 12. Darkstar, that is a 16 total, which is plenty of effect. Maybe because of her experiences on the Skaza Mining Consortium refinery, she's been brushing up on her void portal theory. I'm also going to mark this skill for advancement because, hey, she's earned it. This is also going to cost 6 psi, which is the amount the drugs boosted her, so actually, things may be looking up because she's just still at her normal 12 psi. Let's go ahead and envision this. What's she doing? Ayati murmurs. Mac grimaces. Something I hoped to never have to do again. Brace yourself. This is not fun. Ayati's eyes widen. Oh, stars. She's making a void portal? Before he can answer, the air in front of Sejana shimmers and splits, purple-green energy spilling out of it. Emptiness beckons, and Sejana grabs Ayati's shoulder, pulling her across the threshold, Mac hot on her heels. They're only in the inky darkness for a pair of heartbeats, before they're through another portal into the secondary dining room that mostly stays empty unless they have a full passenger list. Let's roll an endurance test for Ayati. She may not have experience with the Void, but she's been a pilot for a long time. And she may be flying a merchant ship now, but she has definitely performed her fair share of high-G maneuvers in the deep. +1 to the test, target number 8. Another Dark Star. So I did take a break between playing the fight and continuing this adventure, so sometimes you just need your dice to cool off a little bit so they can heat up, apparently. Ayati comes through the portal with the aplomb of a deep jockey, ready to thread a fine course through a debris field. Sejana checks on her, offers a split-second grin as Ayati gives her the thumbs up, and looks at Mac, who is holding it together, barely. Then she closes her fist to seal the portal behind them. You two stay here, she says. I'll take care of the rest. Mac groans. Like hell, Meridian. We do this together. She looks at him and he grimaces. Yeah, like I said, I wish I'd grabbed my armor, but I'm not going to let you go out there by yourself. Sejana glances over at Ayati. She doesn't have any armor, so the two of you are staying back and protecting each other. They both open their mouths to respond, but Sejana interrupts them. We don't have time to argue. This is how it's happening. You know, I technically have superiority. I made to cure 2 decades before you did. Sejana tunes her gauntlet again. We're not in the army anymore. This is my ship, my operation. Stay put. Then she waves her hand again and pulls the void in around her. This time we're rolling for a void cloak. This is the power I've homebrewed, rolling against awareness, which is a +3 versus a target number of 8. I'm going to give her another boon die. I kind of like the idea of a technomancer having a lair where their powers work a little bit better than normal because they've imbued the area with little bits of tech and power that supports them. Whew, 9. Thank goodness for that boon die. Let's roll a d6 to see how many minutes it lasts. 5. All right, so she's going to have to move quickly, but she's got a little bit of time here. She sees the moment they lose sight of her as Ayati's eyes widen and Mac shakes his head. That's always how she ends arguments, he mutters, looking at Ayati, who starts to laugh and then clamps a hand over her mouth. Sejana doesn't stick around to see if there's more talk about her, knowing she doesn't have long before the void cloak dissipates. She slips down the steps from the secondary quarters on the second deck, listening carefully for the hierarchy commandos. The ladder down from the second deck exits into the aft section of the cargo bay, through a hatch which is, of course, sealed. She overrides the door and slides it open, slowly, hoping there's enough distraction from the goings-on in the bow of the ship. Let's roll stealth. +2 for Sejana against a target number of 6, because I do think the commandos are distracted. 10 is a pretty hearty success. The door slides open enough for her to slip through into the cargo bay. Einar and Ayati did a good job filling the hold with cargo, with neat rows of closely stacked crates almost to the ceiling. She walks cautiously down an open corridor between these rows, laser carbine raised and ready to lay waste to the first target she sees. 4, report, a woman's voice says, strain evident in every word. Sejana doesn't hear the response, but she recognizes the curse the woman spits. Clear the front section. There has to be a hidden panel they escape through. I'll get answers. Boots stomp across the deck and the sound of a gauntleted fist hitting flesh and a pained grunt. Tell me where the hidden exit from the bridge is, or I'll carve off sections of your Haldron hide. Burn in ash, comes Einar's growled reply. Sejana turns the corner towards the voices and sees a hierarchy commando, with his back to her. Beyond him, Einar is on his knees, blood dripping from his nose, staring defiantly up at a woman with a blade already in her hand. Sejana glances right and sees the open door into the common room where the other voices are searching for the hidden interlopers. Reaching up to the hilt, grav-locked to her chest plate, she pulls it free and creeps up behind the unaware commando. Alright, Sejana is going to attempt a stealth kill here. I've pulled up the Specialist Forces book and have a rule about snipers and assassins that should work here. If the target is unaware of the danger, which this one is, Sejana can make an attack at a DM-2, and if successful, she can add 1 die of damage per point of effect. Sejana has a +3 in Electroblades, so that's a net of +1. Target number is 8, but I'm going to go ahead and once again give her a bonus die because she's cloaked, and the target is completely unaware that she's there. Here we go. 11 total. That's 3 effect, and since it doesn't say you have to trade effect damage for those extra dice, she's going to deal +3 damage as well. Her Electroblade deals 2d, so that will be 5d total. I'm going to rule that armor doesn't apply here, so here we go. 23 total. That is plenty of damage. One last thing, we're going to roll another stealth against Zabella's recon to see if she notices her man being removed from the equation. I'll roll the recon first since that will set Sejana's difficulty for the stealth test. I think Zabella has a recon of +3. Ooh, that is 14. Sejana's stealth of +2 is not likely to beat this unless I roll a dark star. Nope, 9 ain't going to do it. She lowers the carbine on its tether and grabs the commando, clamping a hand over his mouth as the electro blade in her other hand hums to life and lances up into the man's neck. He gurgles and shudders as the heated energy passes through his throat, sending involuntary twitches down his limbs. He tumbles from Sejana's grasp, and she's already stowing the blade and pulling up the carbine as the woman spins. "Aina, down!" Sejana growls as she draws a bead on the commando. She's already drawing her own rifle up, and the question is, who's faster on the draw? Time for another initiative. I think Zabella probably has better stats than her compatriots, seeing as she's the commander. Let's ask the Oracle. 75 or less will give Zabella a +2 to initiative instead of the +1 of her commandos. 30. Yep. Alright, they're going to be pretty evenly matched here. Sejana also has a +2 to initiative. Zabella, 7. Sejana, 13. I think Zabella is shocked by the visage of her soldier as his life flees from him, and Sejana is a heartbeat faster. She brings the laser carbine to bear and fires. They're both definitely within minimum range, so it is a +1 to attack. +4 to hit, 11. That is definitely going to hit with 3 effect, 4d +3, 17 points of damage, which means 4 sneaks through Zabella's armor as Sejana hits her center mass with a burst of laser bolts. The armor absorbs most of it, but the smell of burning flesh fills the room. Snarling, Zabella returns fire, also at a +3, +1, 11 as well. 13 is not going to do a damn thing against Sejana's superior armor. She realizes that and breaks for the bow section, where her other soldiers are. Sejana moves to interpose herself between Einar and the doorway before taking another shot at the retreating form. 14, that is 6 effect. 19 damage, which means 6 will get through, removing all of Zabella's endurance. But the woman makes it through the hatch into the common area, swerving to the left to clear the line of fire as another of her commandos steps forward and takes a shot at Sejana. That is a miss, only a 7, as Sejana grabs Einar and pushes him behind a pile of crates. It's her turn, and she's going to pull free the electro blade again and cut Einar's bonds. "Get out of here," she growls. "Ayadi's up in the second dorm." He flinches as the sound of suppressing fire ignites the crate they're hiding behind. "What about you?" he asks. She gives him that knife-like smile. "Into the fire, remember?" And she turns the corner, sighting in the commando who has emerged from the hatch to take cover behind a cargo container. He's waiting for her, but she pulls the trigger first. -2 for the cover, so this is only at +2. 9. Ugh, 3 ones on the damage dice is not helping me at all. Her shots drive him back behind cover, and she advances to another crate. He pops back out and takes his own shot at her, also at a -2. 8 exactly. 14 damage does not do anything. Sejana could continue trading shots with this commando, but she's got something else up her sleeve. She shakes out her left hand, summons some purple-green energy from the void, and lances it toward the crate behind which the commando is taking cover. Target number of 8, +3 on the roll. 10 is a success. I don't think this is going to do damage per se, but the crate goes flying, and I think he has to make a dexterity roll to avoid getting pinned beneath it. Target number of 8, he's rolling at +1, a 9. He dives out of the way as the crate slams against the wall, but he's exposed and has to make a choice. Fire at Sejana or scramble for cover. He's going to take a shot, but she's still got that cover. 9 is a hit. 18 damage almost overcomes her armor, but she ducks back behind the crate she's using as cover, some of the bolts scoring the metal next to where her head had been. She pops out from cover again, aims, which will give her an additional +1, and takes a shot at him. +5 because he's got no cover this time. That is a 15. 26 points of damage. 13 gets past his armor. He grunts as Lay's bolts burn into his shoulder and hip, and he fires back before rolling towards the crates on the other side of the corridor. 3 is a bad miss. His shots go wild. Sejana maintains her aim and fires again. 12 hits. 16 damage, 3 sneaking through. He's hurt badly now. Does he think about retreating back through the hatch? He was ordered to hold her here, but he's not making any progress towards hurting the liar. I think it's unlikely he makes a run for it, solely because the Plith are fanatical religious zealots. There's a better world waiting for him if he dies protecting his team. 53. Nope, he stays to fight and fires at her again. 6 is not going to do it for him. The pain distracts him, and a tremor in his hands sends the Lay's bolts harmlessly into the container sides. Sensing the weakness, Sejana leans out, takes aim, and fires once more. 16. That is a brutal hit. 17 damage, including the 8 from effect, which means only 4 slip through. Fortunately, he only had 3 left, and he goes down as the burst of Lay's bolts spins him out from behind cover and drops him to the ground. Sejana explodes from behind cover and closes the distance to the doorway into the common room, ready to fire at anyone who might emerge. She hears hurried searching as they're still looking for Ayadi and whoever took out their comrades. They have no conception of the maneuver she pulled, and the distraction has done more than she hoped. She doesn't have an exact count on her enemies, but there can't be more than 5 in the common room. She slides up against the wall next to the hatch leading through and hears a pair of voices, urgently murmuring back and forth. Removing a small disc from a pouch on her armor, Sejana activates the stun grenade and tosses it into the room. Stun grenades have a blast radius of 9 meters, which is more than sufficient for the common room aboard the Howlin Wolf. Sejana will make an athletics dexterity test to toss the grenade into the room. If she fails the roll, I think that will give the occupants of the room a couple seconds to dive for cover, but on a success, they're going to take the full blast. Rolling +2, that is a 10. There are 2 commandos in the common room, and because of her success, I'm going to say they are caught completely by surprise. Combat armor in Traveler typically has a helmet associated, but these guys aren't wearing helmets. In fact, I've learned a lot about combat in Traveler from this encounter. I definitely think I overcooked the armor protection these guys are wearing because combat armor is fairly bulky. I probably should have picked something like cloth armor for them to represent the more infiltration style of their armor. Oh well, lessons learned. Now, what does this all mean? Normally, stun damage is impacted by protection, but since I did overcook things a little and these guys aren't wearing helmets, I'm going to rule that this stun grenade is going to ignore their armor. It's only 3D plus the 2 effect for my roll, so not a guaranteed stun against their endurance of 10. I'll roll damage against each individually. Here we go. 6 against the first, 15 against the second. All right, let's envision it. Sejana tosses the disc down the corridor into the common room, followed by a shout of surprise. The stun grenade detonates with a brilliant flash and an eruption of sound. She hears a body hit the floor, and she's already turning down the corridor, weapon at the ready. As she enters the common room, she sees one body crumpled on the floor, but her eyes lock in on the other commando, still standing, shaking his head, trying to clear the confusion. Sejana locks in her target and fires. Thanks for listening to Errant Adventures. If you enjoyed the show, please spread the word. And if you want to support the show directly, leave me a review or support me on Patreon at patreon.com/errantadventures. You can also buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/errantadventures. If you want to interact with me, my handle on all the socials is @errantsolopod, or you can email me at errantsolopod@gmail.com. I also post short fiction and campaign-related materials on my website, errantadventurespod.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the deep, liars.